All right, let's get chapter 8 done. So, chapter 8 wrap up video, really quick. Couple power problems in this chapter is how we actually measure public opinion. The other thing is public opinion a cause or is it an effect? So, what comes first, chicken or the egg? A couple of different things we'll talk about in this chapter. You can break this chapter up into two different little sections, okay? It's one of your longest chapters that we actually go over. One section is what influences your guys' values, or so like what causes you to think a certain way or feel a certain way about things, care about things, not care about things. The other thing is the math part of it, because believe it or not, political science is a science, and you actually have to use data to collect some information. So the power problem, determining how much public opinion actually influences public policy. So you should know all three of these complications. What is it? Who or what controls your guys' opinion? Is it a cause or is it an effect? So do you guys have a predetermined notion of how things are in the world, or do you see things and then your opinion comes after? Also, we don't have a direct democracy, so we can't really measure one to one the ratio when it comes to voting or when it comes to public support or maybe things that the public is in disagreement on. Now, public opinion is just a collection of attitudes, beliefs, and in government, we believe in popular sovereignty. So we're trying to create a government that best serves what most people's beliefs are. Now, it's worth noting that this is very hard to do in a nation like the United States for a couple of different reasons. The size, we have a large amount of individuals in the country. And then number two, diversity. Now, diversity always gets promoted as, oh, it's good, it's good, and it can be good, okay? Because we can bounce ideas off each other, we can open our mind, we can learn a little bit more about the world, the more diverse that we get. However, sometimes there's a conflict of values, and those conflict of values lead to disagreement within groups, okay? We're actually seeing this in places like the United Kingdom right now where there's a big battle or conflict of values when it comes to Muslim and Christian people. So if you guys ever noticed, the Middle East is a made up thing that we call it. The Middle East, what it really does is splits Asia and Europe. It is the like the border, you could say. On the right side of that border, predominantly Muslim. On the left side of that border, so going west, is going to be predominantly Christian faith. So, and then in the Middle East, what do we have there? The most conflict in the world. So it's probably due to a conflict when it comes to beliefs and values, okay? And my best way to explain it, like why is it hard to make decisions in bigger groups or more diverse groups? Think about something simple like finding out what you want to eat for dinner. Really easy with your family because you guys come from similar backgrounds, so probably most likely for the most part similar values, whatever it is. You guys are also a smaller group. Let's say as a complete class, we try to figure out what we wanted to eat, okay, for dinner. It'd be a lot harder. A lot of us come from different cultural backgrounds, gender, race. Like, there's a lot of outside factors, okay? Some of us have different dislikes and likes, and it'd be a whole lot harder. One, because we're a diverse group, more diverse than what your family is, and we were a larger group, okay? Now, that's something as easy as just finding what it is to eat. Like, is that important in the grand scheme of things? No. But if that's hard to solve, how hard do you think it is to come to a consensus when it comes to immigration, when it comes to educational policy, when it comes to infrastructure? It is very hard for us to come to an agreement and where most people are kind of happy at that point. One thing I'll also note too, it is very hard to please everyone within government. There's always going to be someone complaining, just like there's always going to be someone complaining when you guys finally decide what you want to eat for dinner. You guys have written this down before. You should just know the end part, what a populist is and what an elitist is. This is just representation, how politicians represent you. If they're populist, that means they listen to you, they care about your opinion. If they're elitist, they don't really care. They're just doing what they think is best. Now, it's important to control or to understand public opinion, to understand where people are coming from, because a politician understand who you are, what influences you the most. They can create a government that best reflects society, right? Like it's gonna best serve them. But you have to examine people's lives. Now, what do you examine in people's lives? These are the 8 things right here. I think your textbook could have added a couple more. At least in the gender one, they probably could have just thrown in sexuality in there because I think that influences people's opinions at times. With socialization, they threw in religion. I could argue that you could have gave religion its own little section at all, or its own little section because I think religion is a real big thing to some people. Just like I think sexuality is actually real big and influencing on how people vote on certain things or how they feel when it comes to like maybe expressing themselves. Regardless, first one is going to be socialization. So this is the first spot where your guys' brain starts to become developed. It is talking to people. When you talk to people, you start to learn behaviors and also pick up on different values. Most of your guys' values are going to come from your family because early on, who are you spending the most time with? Your family. You'll probably notice too, there's probably one parent you get along with more than the other. It's probably because you're close to line with one of those parents' values more than the other because of the time that you spent with them. Or if you're like me, who spent a lot of time with their grandparents growing up, you probably were influenced a lot by your grandparents' values. Like, so for me, my grandparents are hardcore Catholic, okay, very religious, very old school Hispanic, okay. Really early on, I was kind of under the impression that, hey, this is how you're supposed to carry yourself in life, okay? I was living the life of an elderly person or a senior citizen while I was 4 or 5 years old. And then it switches when you go to school. Because when you go to school, you now become influenced by your friends around you, your classmates, and then you adults outside of your family, like your teachers and any other school employee. So your textbook mentions that even though socialization begins early on, just because you socialize with your family first doesn't mean that's your last spot for socialization because a lot of you guys probably are right now where you're starting to stray away from your family because you spend a lot more time with your friends and your values are just slightly changing. It'll change as you get older too. You go to college, you'll meet new people, you start a new type of job, you're talking to these people on a day-to-day basis. Their values rub off on you, your values rub off on them, and you start to become a little bit of a different person. Like me, personally, I was a different person when I was working at the high speed rail. Okay. Completely different person. I was in a different environment. Okay. I was in a different environment when I was in college as a student. I wouldn't say I'm the same person I am now because of who I was talking to on a day to day basis. It shaped how I viewed the world. Next is going to be life experiences. Now, I like how my parents like to talk about, or my grandparents like to talk about how their life was growing up because they swear they had to swim across the river, fight off the bears in the woods just to get to school. And we could joke about that, but at the end of the day, their life is a lot different from ours. Okay? Your parents don't know what it's like to grow up with cell phones early on or to be in front of a screen. Your grandparents might not know, some of our grandparents might not know what it's like to grow up in America as a kid, okay? Because they might have immigrated from another country like mine. Because of that, those life experiences shape how you see the world, on what is right or wrong, on what you think is okay and not okay. Your textbook talks about how life experiences can also change your guys' opinion on things. So, like an example, you might not really care about healthcare until you have a health scare yourself. You might love firearms until you or a loved one gets involved in maybe in a violent attack with a firearm, and your opinion might switch. Okay, I usually like to talk about immigrants during this chapter or like during this section in class. I like talking about the Cubans. People always wonder why Cuban people come to America and they're conservative. It turns out when those people swim across the water, they're swimming across from a communist country, and they've seen communism firsthand. So because of that, that life experience tells them, I want to vote for freedom. I want to vote for the opposite of what communism is, which is democracy. I would prefer to be more likely to vote Republican or conservative, all because of the life experience that changes. Education. How does that influence you? Not only is this a socialization agent, it's also about what you guys talk about in school. So academics wise, okay? Your guys' learning experiences is different because you guys are doing dual enrollment. So you actually have a mix of like what a college institution is like. Normal public high school, it's a little bit different as well. If you were to go to a private school, faith gets thrown in there, right? So your curriculum gets changed up. Now, this is something that people like to argue about because guess what? Like we mentioned in the media chapter, we don't want kids talking about certain topics in schools. Sometimes, not all parents, but some. Schools typically tend to be more liberal or left leaning. Those private schools that are run or tied to religion tend to be more conservative. So the people around you will change different wise or how they look. Also, the instructors in front of the class and the types of content that you guys are talking about. A good example of this, you'll see it when you go to school. A person getting a bachelor's of science is going to look very different than a bachelor's of arts. Okay, like I promise you, that professor in your women's studies class is going to look a whole lot different than that professor in that ag business class. Okay, Because of that, the people around you are going to look a little bit different. Like you're going to see a lot of boots, a lot of people driving lifted trucks in that ag business class. Okay, in that women's studies class, you're going to see a lot of girls in the classroom. You're going to see a lot of people with colored hair, a lot more liberal individuals. So that plays a big role. Once again, kind of who you're around, types of topics you're talking about. Um, when it comes to influencing your values, typically to those who tend to get more of an advanced education tend to be more liberal or left leaning because schools tend to be liberal institutions. Geography. Why does geography matter? Okay. Where you live can actually give you a direct reason why you care about a certain issue. Like for us in the Central Valley, it's agriculture. Real simple, right? We're surrounded by it. Now, if you were living in the Bay Area, you'd be more concerned with tech. If you're living in a city like LA, like we're not really concerned with homelessness here in the Central Valley in these small towns. Living in LA, that's going to be a problem, right? So geography gives us a different things for us to worry about. Like here in the Central Valley, we only, for weather-wise, we only have to worry about what earthquakes and hot weather. That's it. You're living on the East Coast, you're worried about hurricanes. You're worried about the cold. You're living in the Midwest, you're worried about tornadoes. Now, race and ethnicity. This is known as identity politics. I think most politicians think this actually matters a lot. And I'm not saying it's not important. I just think socialization and life experience are the two most important ones. For you, it's whatever influences your values the most. You can pick and choose. Now, race and ethnicity is important. Okay, they like to categorize us. They like to say if you're not black, or if you're black, you should vote for this person. If you're Hispanic or if you're Asian, you should vote for this individual, or you should feel this way about this topic. Okay, and they like to lump us all together. Okay, and some of the times they're right because there are cultural differences they have. I always like to raise a funny question. What do you guys use the dishwasher for? Now, usually when I ask this question, most of my classes tend to be filled with Hispanic individuals. The Hispanic individuals raise their hands and say, "Well, we use it to store dishes." Okay, so you use it as a drying rack. So you hand wash them, you go and you stick your dishes in the dishwasher, and they sit there to dry. You store them there, and then usually a lot of white students will say, "Oh, you wash your dishes in the dishwasher. That's what it's for." That's a cultural difference right there, and that's a funny one. Okay, but then I want you guys to think of other things like let's look at firearms, right? Cultural difference, right? Um, Firearms tend to be, or hunting and hobbies like that tend to be dominated by what type of people? Typically white people. So skin color is going to be a little bit different there, right? Um, now, those are good examples on how maybe race and ethnicity might actually influence us because we have different cultural values, okay? Now, your textbook talks about how it was important in the past to get the support of the African American community. Your textbook now also towards the end kind of argues how it's very important to get the Hispanic vote. Now are all Hispanics the same? No, Mexicans, Cubans, Puerto Ricans, Guatemalans, El Salvadorans, all are just a little bit different, not exactly the same. So sometimes it's not good to throw people in the same ethnic groups or cultural groups because there might be slight differences. And it doesn't just have to be Hispanics. We can look at this with Asians because the Chinese and Japanese and Korean people, they don't all get along. There's differences there. There's also some historical issues that they've had with each other. But your textbook likes to talk about it. Politicians will always bring up race and ethnicity. You've seen Kamala Harris on her past campaign talking about how she's Hispanic, she's Native American, she's African American. She's trying to get the vote because she's trying to relate to this skin color thing. Gender's the next thing. Okay, and remember I told you guys you could throw sexuality in here as well because I think it actually influences people. Like we always ask politicians now, like, what is your stance on the LGBTQ plus community, right? Now, when your textbook talks about gender, it talks about just specifically female and male. Now, typically, if you look at it, if you were to look at the last election, if only women had voted, every single state is blue. If only men had voted, every single state is red. Now, tip, you can look at this like for maybe how we view people in society when it comes to roles. Typically, females tend to be more emotional. They're known as the caregivers, while men are known as the providers, and they tend to think more logical. Now, is it like that for every single male and female? No. These are just generalizations your textbook likes to look at. Okay. And it analyzes like, hey, maybe because of this, there's like a gender gap when it comes to what each gender would support party wise. One of the other things to look at too is like certain topics that people want to care about or that people care about, okay? Like are women participating like as a hobby with firearms? No, that's like a male-dominated place thing or male-dominated field, right? So they're going to be concerned with legislation about firearms. Are men really all that concerned about abortion? Not unless they get the wrong girl pregnant. So that tends to be a female issue, right? And this is why we have issues where girls have issues when men are voting on that because that's not something that affects their body. So gender is something that can actually affect it, people's opinion or their values. Politicians like to focus on this, the sexuality, and they like to focus on the race and ethnicity. Is it the most important? No. Is it? I can see why. Okay, it might be the most important value to you or thing that influences your values. Meat is the next thing we talked about last chapter. How it can set an agenda, how it has a huge amount of influence over how you guys carry yourself, what you see, what you think is right or wrong. Your textbook also talks about how um, over time, not only does it set an agenda, but people's screen times have become a problem. So the average adult in 1997 was sitting in front of the TV around 30 hours a week. You guys probably have that beat. You guys should look at your screen time if you guys want to see how you would compare. And then also consider too, your phone is not the only screen that you're in front of from day to day because some of you are sitting in front of laptops. You guys like to watch TV. So just so you're aware. Government is the last thing. So there's a rally around the flag effect. Okay. Now your textbook says this usually exists during wars. People are proud. They come together and they're proud to be American. Okay. I don't think this exists as much anymore. Okay. And the only time I think people are proud to be American is when it is 4th of July because we set aside our differences so we can pop fireworks and eat hot dogs and have a good time. And also the Olympics because as soon as the basketballs roll out, as soon as we're running around the track, it's F all the other countries. We're proud to be American. Okay. Um, now we might just be losing patriotic people. Now government gets kind of thrown on you really early on and through propaganda. Okay. You guys learn the Pledge of Allegiance, you learn the national anthem as kids. They teach you history in a positive way, but we talked about that last chapter, how they lie to you guys when it comes to certain things, or maybe hide certain things because it wouldn't really give you the best view on America. So we want to make sure that you guys have a good outlook on the country. So we make you guys take history classes, you take this class, which can also be seen as propaganda, and you learn about the United States. You learn about government, and hopefully, when you learn about it, you learn to like it. You learn to think that this is more valuable. Um, this is more valuable. Sorry about that. Than life in another country. Okay, so you guys are proud to be American, or maybe proud to be living in a democracy. Now, public opinion is a cause or effect. Rhetoric. This is just how you influence individuals through language, being persuasive. Politicians have this as a talent. I think some of them are losing it. I think the last good president that we had that had used rhetoric really well was actually Barack Obama. He was very good at speaking in front of the public. Now, you should maybe look at the marketplace of ideas as like you guys shopping at the grocery store. It's a marketplace of ideas. So we pick and choose what we care about, just like we pick and choose items that we put inside the cart. Okay. Some of our carts are going to have similar items. Other of them are going to be like, I would never buy that. That's going to be like an issue you don't care about at all. But the person next to you might care about it, right? It's important to them. So they might put more of that into their cart and spend more time on it because they think it is valuable to them. So we can pick and choose these ideas. Politicians, if they understand what influences you or how you guys are influenced based off the last things that we just discussed, they can actually sell you ideas. They can tell you, like, hey, this is what you should care about because it's big in the world right now or because it's important. Like right now, they're trying to do it with immigration. I'm not saying immigration isn't important, but every politician's talking about it right now. It's a trending topic. It's the most important thing, and it relates to a lot of people. So it's something that we are concerned about. Your textbook talks about how in the 1930s and 40s, you should know this, how we actually, you people were sold propaganda when it came to New Deal policies. This is just an example of rhetoric. One, obviously, the one on the left gives us a more positive image about joining the army. The one on the right gives us more of a negative image. I usually like to go a little bit of a rant talking about war on how it's inhumane and it's It can be necessary. I'm not going to say the military is all that bad. It gives people opportunity, but there's some unethical things that I usually discuss. But because I want to try to keep this video under 25 minutes, we'll keep going. Now, you guys should know this. This is just talking about how people's opinions might not all, and not everyone has the same voice. I have a bunch of stuff on the modules about Bill Gates on how his opinion might be more valuable than yours because he has more power, money, influence. You can look at Elon Musk as another example of this. He posts something on Twitter, everyone hears it. A lot of people, not everyone, but a lot of people hear it and they care about it, they see it. You voice your opinion on social media and maybe it doesn't reach that wide of an audience. So maybe your opinion doesn't matter because, well, as much as others because you don't have the same amount of money or influence or power. Now, how do we measure public opinion? We do it through opinion polls. So you should know what that is. It's just gathering data, and that's pretty much it. Biases can exist. It can be either accidental or on purpose. On purpose, it's because you're purposely, like maybe you don't know how to set up research the best. Accidentally, there might be some outside factors you can't control. Just know though, when you see survey data, there's less margin of error the more people that you interview or that you survey. More um, Less margin of error the more people that you interview, more margin of error the less people that you interview. And this bell curve explains that. I don't really want to get into the math, but I think statistics and finance is the best math that you guys can learn. It's essential for you guys understanding. Okay. If I were to just explain this curve though, it's like you're throwing darts. 90% of those darts are going to be within that green area. This is a 90% confident rate. This whole bell curve ends up equally 99. The point 0.5 on both sides are going to be the outliers. So those are the darts that I'm throwing. Hit somebody in the eye, they go on the floor, they go up in the ceiling. Okay. Most of your data after you find the average is going to fit within here. So you could like you would pick a random dart that I'm throwing. You'd pick a random data point and it should fall within line here. This just shows you less people you interview, the more margin of error that you have, the more that you interview, the less margin. So an example of this, if I was going to survey this class and ask you what your thoughts are on the school, you guys make up a small population of the school. So because of that small sample size, you look more like this bottom line right here. The other thing is too, you guys might not be a good crowd to interview because you guys are in this class. You guys probably have a more positive outlook when it comes to school because you're trying to advance or get ahead. There's four types of bias. First one's gonna be non-response. You should know this. This is people just not answering surveys, not with like Google Forms, not answering the phone, um, or just not answering the door. Like I used to knock on people's doors when I was canvassing for Congressman Dale Valdeo, and I used to ask them to fill out the survey. A lot of times people close the door in front of my face. Don't want to fill out the survey, and that's perfectly fine. Now it's an issue though because if those people who chose to ignore the survey or ignore the phone call, or the text message, or that Google form, if their opinions would have changed my data has a non-response bias. Now, response bias is when people lie. Okay, so if your textbook says con artist or huckster, you can say trolling. It's the more modern version of it, right? Sometimes you might lie about your true beliefs though because you might be in an uncomfortable position. Okay, so like if I'm in a women's studies class and I'm pro-life and we're talking about abortion, I might not want to share that in that class. I'm gonna get yelled at. It's gonna get real scary in there, okay? Or, if some people are debating about religion and maybe I'm an atheist, I'm not gonna go and tell those people I'm an atheist. I don't want to get in that conversation. I'm just gonna lie, you know? So people will lie to because they feel afraid to give an unpopular answer at times or unsafe. Other times people lie because they are purposely messing with your data. So they know, hey, I know this person's trying to get information, but I'm going to lie because I know it'll mess up their data. And they're doing it just for the love of the game, just to be a hater. Next is going to be question wording. So the order, form, and number in which you guys questions are asked. So order, let's say if I was going to survey you about your guys' thoughts on this classroom and I gave everybody extra credit, it's not a good order, right? You guys are going to have a more skewed version of this class because I did something nice for you. You're like, hey, this class is not bad. He gives extra credit. He seems like a good guy. What if I give you like a hard exam or like a paper or something like that? You're going to be like, I hate this class, right? It doesn't give you the most accurate data. Number of questions can matter too. If you give too many questions, people get tired, don't want to fill out the survey. If you give them not enough, you're not collecting enough data. The other thing is what words you choose. So if I ask you guys your opinion on something, right? Like, hey, what is your guys' thoughts on when it comes to aborting fetuses? The word fetus pops up in your mind. And you're thinking, oh, that doesn't seem like that serious. What if I ask you, what are your thoughts on killing babies? You're gonna be like, hey, I don't know. You might give two different answers there, right? Now I'm asking you the same thing when it comes to pro-life or pro-choice, but the image in your mind changes. Therefore, that might be a bad question to ask based off of the wording right there. You might give a different answer depending on each person. Coverage is the last thing. Not everyone your textbook says has phones. Now, typically, we can't even do phone surveys because most people are doing what? They don't have a landline anymore. Everyone has a cell phone, and you can just hang up on those spam calls really quick, ignore those text messages, block the numbers. So, coverage bias is an issue. Now, the other biases, you can kind of stop them or get people to fill out surveys accurately. If you're incentivizing them, this is why they get people like tote bags, extra credit, money, like just little gifts and stuff to gather data. Now, coverage bias can't really be fixed like that. Coverage bias can only be fixed by actually trying to survey as many people as you can. So you knocking on as many doors as you can, calling as many people, and trying to lower that margin of error and try to get a diverse population to make sure that it is the most fair data that is collected. And that concludes this chapter. So sorry, this was a little bit longer. This is your longest chapter in the book. Once again, if you have any questions on this, feel free to reach out. But yeah, that concludes chapter 8 wrap up video. It's great. Well, not seeing all you guys. Hopefully, it was great for you guys to see my face. I know it's been a while for me to post these videos. It took me a while to post these videos. So, you guys have a good one. Remember, any questions, feel free to reach out. Appreciate y'all and love y'all.